Welcome back to The Rank. I'm John, and season finales are where sitcoms go all out. Big laughs, big moments, and sometimes big problems.
Their relationship is a lie. The father of that baby is one of these men behind me. Yeah, they're all here, baby. All these men. And one of them is the dad.
What?
So it's the season finale of season 3. And if you didn't know it was a season finale, by the end you definitely would, because it went with the typical sitcom trope of ending a season on a cliffhanger. You gotta stick around, you gotta come back for season 4 so you can know what's going on. But before we get into the cliffhanger of Best Man, which is the name of this episode, let's talk about how it starts. Because with a name like Best Man, you got to assume it's going to be about a wedding. And it is, for the most part. And it's going to start off with Jeremy being like, we can't all go to Peter's wedding. And as he's telling everyone this, the lights start flickering. And there's some guy there with a mask saying he's going to kill everybody. Of course, it's Peter. And I really did enjoy how everyone was super terrified, but when they find out it was him, they all acted like, oh, that was such a cool thing you just did. I don't know. If it was me, I would not think that was cool. I'd be like, dude, what the fuck is wrong with you? Also, this is the only scene of the whole episode that Dr. Bergdahl is in. So I'm guessing he's probably not going to show up in season 4, but I guess we'll see. Anyway, this part is going to set up the B story. You see, Peter needs a new best man because his original pick, Pube, tried to kiss him at the bachelor party and then begged him not to marry Lauren. So he asked Mindy to be his best man, which is much to Morgan's chagrin because he really wants to be the best man. So there you go. The cold open sets up the B story. And as soon as we come back from the cold open and the intro, we get to the A story. Mindy's gonna walk into Danny's office and ask him if he remembers when she told him that her parents were moving to India for a year. He's like, of course I remember, because I made that great joke. Even the third world is better than Boston. That feels so Yankee fan to say that. But Mindy is inviting Danny to meet her parents with her in Boston before they leave. And she's like, bring wine for my mom, bring a nonfiction book for my dad, a coin for my grandfather, and don't bring up the Yankees because her dad's a big Red Sox fan. And then she tells him, you need to shave also. So he's got a lot of shit he's got to do to beat these parents of hers. Now this seems to be all going normally, but then Danny says he's got a procedure to do on Wednesday and that he'd go afterward. And you just knew that that meant he wasn't going to show up for her. And sure enough, he won't. But before we get to that obvious disappointment, the show is going to bring us back to the B story. Jeremy is telling Peter that he just can't make it to the wedding because he's just too busy. Obviously, it's really because he's jealous and he's having some feelings about the situation. And Peter knows it too. He even asks if they're good. And when he asks that, Morgan just happens to be sitting on the couch next to them, and Morgan's like, yeah, but I'm still a little bummed about the whole best man thing. And then Peter doesn't even look at him. He just goes, not you. It's never you. But we head back to Danny, who's doing the procedure, and he's like looking at the clock. And when he's finally done with the procedure, he calls Mindy and just starts making a bunch of excuses about how he just, it doesn't make sense for him to go. Now, clearly this is hurting Mindy's feelings. And I'm sitting there just like, come on, Danny. For crying out loud, just make the fucking trip, dude. So we cut to the next day, and Mindy is in the office with Peter, who's still acting as her gynecologist, but is telling her that she needs to go see the doctor that he recommended. Mindy wants to stay on with Peter, though. And when he's like, I can't deliver a baby from Texas, Mindy finally concedes. However, she makes a point to say that she won't be doing voices with her crotch for the new person. That's only for Peter. What? What are you doing, Mindy? I find it hard to imagine that even doing that with a significant other would be fun. Although I guess just gonna give too much detail about my personal life, so I'm just gonna move on. This is when Danny shows up. And he's apologizing to Mindy for not making it to Boston. And Mindy's just accepting it. But then she's like not really allowing him to do anything about it. Like he keeps saying, I want to send flowers. I want to do this. I want to send candy. But she's like, no, those are all signs of death in Indian culture. And she's refusing to give him their address. So what the heck is going on? Well, it turns out she hasn't told her parents about Danny. Now she tells this to Peter after Danny's left the room, because of course. But the problem is that Morgan is going to eventually end up overhearing this conversation. And of course, it's out of context. What Danny hears is Peter asking, if not Danny, who's the father? And she's like, it's just an ex that's not in my life anymore. Of course, what they're actually talking about is what her parents think, but Morgan thinks that Danny isn't the actual father. which is going to send him on a mission, which we'll find out more about later. But the next thing we know, Mindy is in the office of the doctor that Peter recommended, and it's Laura Dern doing a Ukrainian accent or something. This scene is just complete nonsense, but it was really funny. They start off bonding about the fact that Peter is both of their favorite Jew. And then the doctor calls Mindy fat and old. And we get a few fat jokes here, which are weirdly not egregious, just sort of silly, which, I can deal with that. Then when Mindy mentions that she's going to be the best man at the wedding, the doctor is like, oh, you're a man. That makes so much more sense. Like, aren't you a gynecologist? Plus, you know that she's pregnant. Anyway, the point of this is to find out that she has preeclampsia, which means she can't be Peter's best man. She can't even go to his wedding. In the next scene, though, we find out that Danny is taking Mindy to a surprise baby shower. So we're just going like, we're doing this, and then we're doing this, and then we're doing that. Like, whoa, it's a lot just sort of being thrown at you. And the baby shower is taking place at his mom's house. And Annette's gonna be like, I tried to get Mindy's side of the family involved, but she couldn't get a hold of them because Danny didn't know where they lived or what their address was or their phone number or anything. But she was able to get around this problem by reaching out to Rishi. So we think we're about to have this big moment where Mindy has to reveal Danny to her parents. But then Morgan shows up. He's like, close that laptop because I have something to say. That they called the parents on the laptop. And Mindy just immediately closes it. So now we're going to find out the mission that Morgan gave himself. He took it upon himself to locate a bunch of Mindy's exes. Now, this is really funny, but Morgan, damn. Just go to Mindy and ask her about what you heard, man. Anyway, we've got Josh, Jamie, Casey, and Lee. Lee was definitely the one I was most surprised by. But it was fun having Schmidt there. So they've already been told that these are Mindy's exes. But Annette, Danny's mom, is going to be like, who are all these men? And then Dot gets the killer line afterwards. And why are they all white? I love the idea that Mindy is just meeting the criticism about her in real life head on in the show and just sort of shrugging it off. But this is where a bunch of proverbial shit is going to hit the proverbial fan. Danny's going to find out that Mindy's parents don't know about him, but he didn't want to meet them regardless. The most damning part is when all of the exes have met her parents except him. And then he's going to admit that he was scared to meet them because he was going to ask why they aren't married. And this is when it turns into a much larger problem. He loves Mindy, but he doesn't want to get married. And Mindy is bordering on devastated by this. So they go off to another room to talk about it. And he basically says that he doesn't believe in marriage anymore. But he's willing to buy her rings and shit, so I guess that's nice. So he points out that marriage means nothing. But she's like, but it means something to me. I mean, why, just because he had a bad one, does that mean that she doesn't get to try it out? I thought that was a really good line. Also, a really sad one. So Mindy leaves, and then we later see Danny talking to Annette, and Annette is blaming herself. She thinks that her bad marriage has had a traumatic, lasting impact on Danny. But then he points out that when she married his dad, she thought he was the greatest person on earth. And when he married Christine, he thought she was the greatest person on earth. And now they hate them both. And he doesn't want that for him and Mindy. He doesn't want his son growing up feeling alone. That one actually hit me in the feels quite a bit. I feel like any child of divorce can feel that, but especially the ones that didn't get to see one of their parents as much as the other. But Annette just says, maybe the problem isn't marriage. Maybe the problem is that we picked people who didn't deserve it. So that's going to break us into a sort of montage. We get a post-it note from Danny on the counter that says, we'll talk when I get back from Austin. And we show Danny boarding a flight. But I had a sneaking suspicion that he was actually headed to India, which I was proven right about. But I'm not supposed to know that because Mindy's going to get a call from Morgan, who is still upset about not being the best man, and he's at Peter's wedding. And from his perspective, we're going to get to see Jeremy and Peter doing the best man dance together, which was a lot of fun. But it's when Morgan says that Dr. C isn't there that Mindy is like, what? Where is he? So that was the moment of the reveal. But let me know in the comments if you were like me and weren't surprised at all by this reveal. Anyway, we watch Danny go to a building and then stand in front of a door inside said building. And then he knocks, and when it opens, the camera pans over, so we're seeing the perspective of the door, looking straight at Danny's face. And he says, I'm Danny Castellano, and I'm in love with your daughter. And that's when it ends. So I guess we'll find out at the start of the next season what actually happened here. But I really think that the joke is going to be that he was talking to the wrong people. But let's find out how it ranked.
Oh, wait.
Now, I really enjoyed this episode, as you can see by the numbers next to my head. It does seem like sitcoms tend to do their best work when it comes to a season finale. They pack a lot of laughs and emotions in, and this one is no different. I'm sad that this is probably the last we're gonna see of Peter, but it was fun that he finally got the girl. I think the impressive thing about this episode is that it introduced friction in the relationship between Mindy and Danny, but they managed to make it feel not contrived. Danny is worried about getting married because he's seen his parents' marriage fail and because he's seen his own marriage fail. He's got a lot of anxiety and fear surrounding that. I can appreciate that. It actually felt incredibly relatable to me. But ironically, it was almost the opposite experience. When I met my wife, I knew she was the one, but she was hesitant about marriage. What's funny about that is that I had already been divorced, and both my parents had been divorced twice. Whereas her parents have been happily married for 46 years now. If anything, it should have been me that was worried about marriage. Anyway, that's besides the point. The episode was excellent and relatable, especially for me. Did it hit any of you out there as well? Let me know in the comments. It was well written, well acted, and funny. So as you can all see, the scores for this one are high. This means it won't take much of a laugh counter to keep it in the top 3 tiers. And this one got me a solid 16 times. And if you want to see a breakdown of which moments made me laugh, or my analysis of each one of these categories, that will be available on my Patreon page, which is patreon.com/therankpodcast. But that puts the grand total of the episode up to a 40.35, which puts it in the top tier, which is the meaning of life. This puts the episode firmly in 17th place out of the 67 episodes that I've ranked so far. And considering how good this episode was, it just goes to show how good this series has been. And if you want to see the entire list of episode rankings, you can see that on my website at therankpodcast.com. But as for the series average, it goes to a 36.28, staying as a holy grail. And if you're ranking along with me, drop your scores in the comments. But thanks for listening and or watching. Check out my other Mindy Project ranking episodes or any of my other sitcom or movie ranking episodes on this channel. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. If you want to reach out to me directly, you can email me at info or john@therankpodcast.com. But I will leave you with this. We finally found out who Josh's favorite girlfriend was. Crystal. Meth.
No.
Don't know what I'm doing. Gonna be fun for you to start with that. Hey, hi, Antonio.
He does this from time to time.